Welcome to the SJ Child Show, where a little bit of knowledge can turn fear into understanding. Enjoy the show. Hello, everyone. Welcome to August 2023. In just 10 days, we'll have the virtual Autism Summit, the 1 in 36 mix. Reach out to me. I have scholarship tickets available for any families you might think could use a ticket and might not be able to afford it. It's $25 for the 2-day event. You can go to my pages. You can look up the 1 in 36 mix on a bunch of different social medias. Come and join us. 36 autistic speakers, live podcasts, live musicians, amazing performances. Come and support them all. I'd love to have each and every one of you show up and really engage. August 11th and 12th from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. Eastern, the 1 in 36 mix virtual autism event. You will have access to all of the speakers in the community chat. You will have access to the live podcasts, Autism Dad, Embracing Autism, the SJ Child Show, and 36 of our amazing autistic presenters. Don't miss it, guys. Reach out to me. Get those scholarship tickets to families in need. Enjoy the show. Hi, and welcome to the SJ Child Show. Today, I'm really looking forward to getting into this conversation. I have a wonderful author, and her books are so important. I'm not sure if you have multiple ones, but the one that you have in your program, because something that is so important to me and my kind of mission, I think my whole life has been seeing children, empowering children, like really wanting them to see their value and understand that just because they're them, that is what brings their value to this world. And it's so important when we see people on this journey that we, help support one another. And it just brings about such a beautiful sense of community. So thank you so much for being here today, Meg.
Of course, it's a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's really exciting to have you here. Meg Zucker, she is the author of, and of course, I blank out when everything's not in front of me. So I'm going to let you tell the story about everything and kind of maybe an introduction and what you started into being such an amazing advocate.
So I'm the author of Born Extraordinary, Empowering Children with Differences and Disabilities. I'm also the president and founder of Don't Hide It, Flaunt It, which is a 501c3 nonprofit organization. And we focus on essentially acceptance and empathy. And we do a lot of social emotional learning programs for people of all ages across the country. And we've been around since 2015, although this is my first book. I've been writing for the past 12 years in magazines and newspapers and done some TV as well.
That's fantastic. And it's really cool when we can find these mediums to share our passions, help educate others. Tell us about kind of growing up and what part of the world are you at?
So first of all, I was born with a genetic condition called ectrodactyly, which means I have one finger on each hand, shortened forearms, and one toe on each foot. And it's a condition that I passed along to 2 of my 3 children. I was born in Illinois, but then I was raised in the Middle East and South Asia. And in fact, a lot of the stories that are in the book follow me abroad, not just in the United States. So my focus in terms of this book and why I wrote this book was because my parents really, I also had brothers, but they and my brothers were not born with my genetic condition. It didn't end with me, though. I have 3 children, 2 of which share it. And so, my focus and intention was, since my parents did such a great job in raising me, but they didn't write a guidebook. So I'd like to write down exactly the types of things, thoughts of wisdom and other nuggets of good stuff, but also mistakes that even I made, even though I'm the one that gave birth to my difference. The other thing that's really important about the book is that it's not just my story. So it's a story, or it's a parenting guide, if you will, but it includes the stories of at least 30 other um, parents of children with visible and invisible differences and disabilities. Thought it was really important that, anyone that picks up this book, while thematically, while we don't all share one another's experience with being different or disabled, thematically, the book is there to sort of lend a supporting hand to those parents and then ultimately to empower their children.
So important too. And we really find my two children are autistic, and my husband and I. And so I understand, like you said, how, we have to sometimes prepare more than just ourselves and our kids. I thought of it as preparing my peers or my kids' peers, and the neighborhood kids. And so that's what kind of started me in writing my books too, is that idea that if they can get a little bit more understanding through their friends and the people that they grew up with, then hopefully everybody can be more supportive of those things that they need more support with. And it's been so wonderful to see the growth that the children have when they get the knowledge that they need. And a little quote that we like to say is, just a little bit of knowledge turns fear into understanding. And kids love that.
Yeah, it's interesting. And, my first chapter is called Embracing the New Normal. And I talk about how, the opposite of hate, the opposite of love is not hate, it's actually fear. And as a parent, every misstep, or even as a person, who's physically different, every mistake that I've made really was rooted in fear. And I talk about that in the first chapter, which is called Embracing the New Normal. So that first chapter is really designed before a parent turns to empowering and supporting their kids, probably not in that order. They really have to do a check-in on themselves and how are they doing? What's their mental strength? Are they fear-based parenting? And if they are, then, it's helping them lead them through that and past it. Because how can we possibly, expect that type of level of mental strength and confidence from our children if we haven't achieved it ourselves?
So important. And it's really important that I think this new era of parenting is so fantastic. In fact, this episode is in the Purposeful Parenting series. So it's perfect place for it to be, because it's so important that we don't look as much at who our kids are going to be. What are we going to make them into? Kind of like I felt like our parents were accustomed to do for us. And it all comes down to, generations and generations of teachings. And they were taught what they were taught. We were, got what we got out of it and decided whether or not we were going to repeat it or not repeat it. And I don't know about you, what your ages of your kids. I have a 23-year-old stepdaughter and then a 13 and 11-year-old. And believe me, that 23-year-old, bless her heart, got all the mistakes made. I kind of narrowed out what wasn't working anymore in parenting and what I didn't know, I guess. And now I know better. Now I can do better, right? With what I know.
Yeah. I mean, so my kids right now are, I have a junior in college and a high school senior and a high school sophomore. But, in terms of what you were saying before, there's a chapter at the end, right before the additional words of wisdom, which is all those other parents. A lot of them have contributed, and also throughout the book. But, I started Don't Hide It, Flaunt It, my nonprofit. It's not even mine anymore. I mean, it's bigger than me in a good way. But I started it because Ethan, our son, was bullied on the playground for being different when he was in first grade. And again, he's a junior in college now, so it's a long time ago. And I started to do social emotional learning programs because I felt there was a real hunger in the classroom environment for teachers to not just focus on kids like my son, who was different, but also what about the kids that were willing to taunt him? And that sort of brings me to, you were talking about other kids, and even though this chapter is called "Take the Bully by the Horns," BUL-Y, even though that's the title, I really actually focus on the concept of friendship and that goal. There's a lot of signs on the wall or posters: be kind, choose kindness. It's not a bad thing to be kind. It's a good thing to be kind. But, when you're living the life in the shoes of a kid that's different or disabled, I think that falls flatter. And in fact, it's inadequate because, if another parent says to their child, be kind to Ryan, then to me, that just means they can smile at them or not in the hallway. And that's kind. They're just not being mean. And that's all the kid hears. And, but that Ryan needs a friend. Ryan needs kids to play with on the weekends and invite to a birthday party. Yeah. And so that's what's so important in this space.
I love that. Define what the kindness means, define action that they can take, solution finding, right? And they need that.
And creating empathy. And that's the problem we do is teaching the other kids that they have the right level of, or they can understand that they might not share the same condition or experience with the other kid. It doesn't mean that based on something about themselves or their family, they don't like to be judged. So even if they don't have the same thing, they can feel the same way. Yeah. And once you start teaching kids that sort of bridges things. And so you can build that friendship, and it's not just about kindness. Mm-hmm. Again, to me, it's a good thing. It's just inadequate in this regard.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. I think that just having posters up or not really like teaching our kids how to communicate with the other students in asking questions if they are curious and in a kind manner, and more, it's all about the education behind it and what they need to know so that they can make the right choice. And if they have the information and they're still making the wrong choices, then maybe something needs to be in place. And it's great that you said that, because I kind of, in a panel, they were asking about, well, what do you think should be done, in behavior when behavior is bad and things. And I kind of have like this outside the box thinker idea. Okay. Guilty as charged. What about kindness? What if we put in kindness in place? What if you get in trouble, you have to do 5 acts of service, and you have to, find an actor that you're fond of, and start with somebody you really like, and then build on that. Now add 5 more students that you might be friends with in the school, write about them and how you could be kind or something. And what if we practiced so much kindness instead of punishment that it changed the way they started thinking, and instead of rebel, kind of in this vicious cycle, I think.
Yeah, look, I mean, I think to your point, not every kid anyway responds in the same way to consequences. Some kids, really that teaches them a lesson, and the other ones just get mad about it and will do whatever they have to do. I think that's an interesting point and suggestion, and always moving the needle is a good thing. I would agree with you on that, but dig deeper beyond just acts of kindness, like I said, and just have that kid really, really more, that's why we do our programming for kids, where we ask them to write or do art with a theme, the things that make me different, make me me, and ask them to be vulnerable about themselves, and really think through that, and maybe even opportunities to share, because I do agree. I think that's a positive way of moving that needle. But, those kids, in terms of their true nature, who they are and what they are, like, to me, I think if we haven't sort of made them, hold up a mirror and really think about themselves, then I think we could be a little bit in danger that those wonderful kind acts will just be like what they are in a given moment, and they won't have a long-term impact. I know this
Mhm.
sounds really weird, but like even on that kid's
No,
soul.
that is so true. That is so true. I think you're right about the introspection. They need to really take a look inside themselves and find those vulnerabilities to understand how safe or unsafe those things make them feel is the same way they're making someone else feel as well. So,
Exactly.
such a great point. What kind of things do you guys do at the nonprofit? Sounds like you do the program, go around the schools and do programs and things.
Yep. So, well, that was our flagship program, where it turned into, I piloted it after Ethan, our son, was bullied on the playground, but it turned into, a national program. And, so that, is something we continue to do, those kind of programs. So there was also Project Flaunt programs, we call them, in middle schools and high schools. But we've also done programs at Boys and Girls Clubs. We are a coalition member with the Elizabeth Dole Foundation to create programming for families of disabled veterans.
Mhm.
They we do. I also and we do a lot of diversity, equity, and inclusion programming in Fortune 500 companies, but for the staff as well as programming for the staff and kids, like take your kid to work day programming. So what turned what was triggered by a very negative incident, my son being bullied, actually blossomed into something a lot of positive, and I'm really proud about that.
Yeah, it's interesting how that happens often is that
Mhm.
we turn these events that are traumatic, unfortunately, for or our kids or ourselves, and we have an idea that helps others in the future to not hopefully have to go through that same trauma. And yeah, it's hard. It's we always want to know, especially as parents, how to best protect our kids in that moment and what can we teach them, what can we instill in them. You can only do so much. You can't be in control of them or the other kids around them at all times. So yeah, so that is really tricky. What type of I had this great question, but then I just was listening too hard and it blanked out of my brain. That's a great thing, I think.
No.
What oh, that's what it was. What type of accessibility do you need for your family and things like that? Is there any other support needs that you have in place that you look for maybe in the community that could do better?
Well, for my family, we don't have any needs like that. We are quite self-sufficient. It doesn't mean I can play the flute. So I guess, but I did play the trombone for years. And
That's
so,
cool.
oh yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah, no, I was raised by parents that, you know, helped me realize I was living in my own version of normal, capable of doing anything and everything within my means.
Hmm.
I certainly know that there are people that, leverage things like prosthetics and things like that. And, there's nothing wrong with that. We just have, I think that it's a very individualized
Yeah.
sort of need, but for our family, I'm just trying to think if there's anything, but truly, there's not. It's just, we happen to physically look different and have to manage it. And
Yeah.
and in fact, my book, after embracing the new normal, the next couple of chapters, one is building their dignity,
Mhm.
because when you're living your life as if you're a fish in a bowl with everyone staring, it's really working with the kids to sort of build up that sense of self. And
Yeah.
then, and so to me, those are the types of uh, 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 it's not about it being having accessibility needs, but just sort of needs in this sort of mental strength and emotional
Yeah.
strength. And then, in the third chapter, it's called Let Go and Let Live.
Mhm.
And that really is about, of course, we all want to protect our children, but we don't want to overprotect them. And so it's really focusing with parents about how to navigate that. But again, based on that, dreaded fear, which
Yeah.
if we're prone to that as a parent, then we're going to raise very stifled kids.
Mm.
So those are the kind of things. So I hope I've answered your question. It's
Oh,
it's
yeah.
not something that,
Absolutely.
yeah, I mean, actually, and I wrote about it in the book. when I was very little, my parents took me to a place in Chicago, an institute, to try and put a prosthetic on me. And I was adamant, like I hated it. And I
Mm.
hurled it across the room, and it was not for me. And, I finally, my parents gave up and we left. And it's not to say again that those kind of assets are not great for people
Yeah.
that need them. I think, but I talk about the fact that I think sometimes, parents should be cognizant of the fact that, listen to your kid. Is this something you think they need, or is this something they actually need? And they'll probably be very vocal about it once they are vocal.
Yeah.
And that might change, it might evolve. I am positive though, if very early on you make that decision for them, then they're going to be dependent on it.
Yes. Such a
So
good
for
point.
me, I never had to do that because I knew what I was capable of. And so it never even occurred to me to offer things like that to Ethan or Charlie, or our sons who share my
I love
condition.
that. I love that. No, and I think it's exactly like you said, kind of living in a new normal. But if we really look back at our entire history, diversity is what we are. That's what we're all like. We are all so diverse. Like none of us are the same. And so it's embracing that rather than pathologizing it and making it some horrible thing. But I think I love that about the disability community is it may be a little bit sectored into autism, physical disabilities, and that such, but I really have found a kind of friends and with so many places and so many parts and so many different support systems along the way. Like Mindy, we're saying I had the honor of interviewing her last year, and just being able to watch and follow like the inspiring things that can come about from something that might look to someone else like a struggle, and you really take it in as a parent, really have to teach our kids that resilience so that like
Yeah.
you said they have that within them to grow and do that. So how's college going now then for those
Well,
guys?
one of the things I was going to say is, because you touched on something really important, and I hope you read the book and
Please,
you'll
yes,
get
yes.
something out of it. But important, extraordinary. One of the things I talk about is how I probably did a little bit of a misstep in terms of communities, for my kids. Like I never had that growing up. I also lived abroad in the Middle East and South Asia, so it
Well, that's
wasn't
different.
available anyway. But
Yeah.
even now, even when I was in the United States, it wasn't available. I mean, there wasn't. I'm dating myself. There wasn't the internet. There wasn't anything like that. And
Sure.
so, um, I write about in the book about, the importance of that. I think it was a missed opportunity. I see these, whether it's through social media or the safe groups of people that you can connect with. And, whether, and even it's not only on social media, I see they have picnics once a year, or whatever they're doing, or events.
Yeah.
Kids get to connect on a level that they would otherwise not experience. I thought for our family, I'm like, well, my boys have me, so they don't need that. But, in the book, I talk about how Ethan's like, yeah, Mom, I would have been curious. I'd never had a friend that looked like me or whatever. And, in that sense, it was a big misstep for me. And so, I write about that because I think it's
It's
important for
wonderful.
people to know where I screwed up, not just the things I'd recommend based
It's
on
I
experience.
think it's where we get our most wisdom from people is those
Yeah.
ideas, because if somebody else has gone through it and they've said this is don't do this, then we have a better idea and might go into it a little more cautiously than if we're just like do not knowing any of that. So I completely agree. And yeah, and at the beginning, I mean, for us it was a lot different because it was more, I mean, obviously my kids were born with the outer ear microtia, but it's not
Mhm.
as I mean, did
I have
affect
a
me
parent.
my whole life, but you
I
know,
have a parent that's a contributor with a son that has that condition in the book.
yeah. Oh,
Um,
really? Oh,
yeah,
that's
so
great.
you really do cover
Yeah.
everybody
And
for sure.
it's almost like you have to understand that everybody's on their own journey, and
Yeah.
And things affect people so differently across the board. People have different ways they process their feelings or they process society for that matter. And so, yeah, I think that giving all this great information is so valuable and so inspiring. Thank you so much. Where
Yeah.
can we go
Thank
to find the book and all of that good
Yeah, I
stuff
just want
too?
to say thank you for having me. I really
Yeah,
appreciate it. I'm very grateful. So
pleasure.
you just go to megzucker.com, megzucker.com. That's my author website.
Love
And
it.
it has everything from media appearances to about the book will show. I mean, it's available anywhere and everywhere, certainly Amazon and, Walmart and Target and Barnes and Noble and all that kind of stuff. I also personally recorded the Audible, and a
Oh,
lot of people,
awesome.
yeah, so a lot of people are,
Love that.
I find, excited about that because people tend to be back in, post COVID, back in cars more than they used to be. And it just, something that passes the time. So I'd be delighted if your audience,
Yeah.
want to check out Born Extraordinary and post a review and let me know how you like it.
100%. I hope that they will as well, and I will be.
Thank
So,
you.
it's been such a pleasure to have you on today too, and connect with you. I just, at the beginning of our journey with autism, it was very isolating and lonely, and just not
Yeah,
knowing many people, like you said, not having other families to lean on. And I kind of created that. I started making Facebook groups, so like you said, kind of through social media and such, but now it's just brought me this amazing opportunities through podcast and everything. So what a pleasure it is to be able to connect with you, and
same.
it's just been so much fun. So thank you for your
Thank you.
time today,
Thank
and
you. I
glad
appreciate
we
it.
got to make it work. Schedules, right? They can be tricky, those things sometimes. Well, you
Have
have
a
a
wonderful day.
fantastic day. Yeah. Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Thank you, Sarah. Bye.